Port Hamilton Refining and Transportation says it is addressing safety concerns arising from the Environmental Protection Agency's recent inspections of the refinery on St. Croix South Shore and the EPA's subsequent consent order. Among a myriad of issues, the report from the EPA inspectors raised concerns about the potential for catastrophic damage caused by chemicals left sitting at the non-functional refinery without proper oversight or management. As a result, on Monday, the agency issued a consent order requiring that the over 40,000 pounds of anhydrous ammonia, the more than 37,000 pounds of liquefied petroleum gas, hydrogen sulfide, and other chemicals be removed from the facility. These chemicals are used for refinery processes, but the facility has been shuttered since May 2021 following a series of chemical releases that ultimately led to bankruptcy proceedings by its former owners and its eventual sale to PHRT. The inspection performed in September found that much piping, valves, and holding tanks used to store and move these chemicals was severely corroded and posed an imminent threat of chemical release, fire, or explosion. The consent order requires PHRT to hire approved contractors to assess the chemical containment systems, propose removal options, and perform the safe removal process. All steps of the operation will be overseen by the EPA, and the order contains provisions to enforce the stipulations within, including penalties assessed for each failure by PHRT to adhere to the terms of the order assessed daily. Hours after the EPA announced the issuance of the order on consent, Port Hamilton says it is taking quick action to remedy the safety concerns outlined by the agency. PHRT Principal Charles Chambers, in Monday's statement, said the company had already, quote, retained certified third-party experts to complete an inspection as part of our corporate due diligence to restart the refinery. The EPA consent order notes that PHRT needs to provide the qualifications of the two proposed contractors, Advisian Group LLC and USA DeBusk, for approval before they will be allowed to begin work. A sign of how important the refinery is to St. Croix and to the USVI as a whole, the territory's governor and congressional delegate have also weighed in on Monday's developments, albeit with differing perspectives. Governor Albert Bryan Jr. lauded the consent order as an example of, quote, the open communication we have initiated between the EPA and Port Hamilton, and said that the cleanup requirements were creating, quote, a pathway to safely restoring this key economic driver in our community. Quote, we have made great strides in our resolve to achieve the necessary balance between protecting the health of St. Croix residents, the governor continued, and we remain focused on working with the EPA and Port Hamilton to achieve that balance safely. Meanwhile, Congressional Delegate Stacey Plaskett says she met with the EPA on Monday to discuss the issuance of the consent order and repeated to agency representatives at that meeting her belief that the refinery be scuppered and St. Croix South Shore be repurposed for alternative economic activity. Quote, although the initial news of the permit requirement may seem to be negative, Delegate Plaskett says, this situation presents our territory with a transformational opportunity. Plaskett is pushing for government, both local and federal, along with the private sector, to tap into grants made available through recent legislation on infrastructure, jobs, and inflation reduction to, quote, create an entire new economic/industrial system on the islands. For its part, the EPA says this consent order is just the beginning, meant to address the most serious of the safety and maintenance deficiencies identified in previous inspections. It will continue to work to address other environmental issues at the refinery moving forward, the federal agency said.